Photo Show. I'm Steve Reichert. I am a photographer and filmmaker, and this is a duck. This is Friday night live stream. I'm going to talk a little bit about photography. Hopefully, and this will be casual. Looking forward to taking some of your questions from you guys, doing a little bit of Q&A. Usually when I do these live streams, I usually bring a little bit more of a formal topic matter to discuss, but on the last few live streams that I've done, I've been kind of talking a lot about the Fuji X-E3 that I've been shooting a lot lately, and right now I have a couple of reviews for the X-E3 that I am getting ready to start editing and putting together and releasing to you guys. So I figured it would be nice to kind of maybe take a little bit of a break from riding the X-E3 so hard and instead bring a duck to the table, and so you know, change things up a little bit. Good evening, Queen of San Joaquin, and hello Mario and everybody else who is in here. Glad to see you all in here tonight. King Yuzi is here. Awesome. We got UK checking in. The other night I did the live stream a little bit earlier. We wound up having a pretty sizable international crowd. Yes, the duck says hello to you too. This is actually my daughter's duck, I have to say, to be fair. But yeah, whenever I'm doing these live streams, I like to have some sort of prop to gesticulate with, and usually I go with the camera, but I feel like that had been done to death, so I figured a duck would be a nice change. Hey, Vincent Duke, good evening. Wow, Philippines. Okay, so we're fully international tonight. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm loving these live streams here on Sunday night. It's a nice chance to kind of be a little bit more casual, I guess. I actually have just been working on one of my last videos, I think, that I'm going to make about the X100F, and so that kind of got me thinking a little bit about how I'm kind of anticipating backlash that I'm going to get on the channel when I give some of my honest thoughts and feedback about the X100F, and started me thinking a little bit about what it is that we actually look for in a camera review, like why we you know, look at camera reviews, because sometimes I think we look at those even if we're not actually planning on buying them. I think a lot of times people look at camera reviews after they've already bought the camera. And so that can make things a little bit dicey when you're telling somebody what they've already bought and they may not be happy to hear everything that you have to say. But yeah, the duck does not have a name as of yet. That's something that's we're still waiting on. But it is mallard. That is a fact that I know about the duck. But yep, no name as of right now. Alright, so what do you guys have going on tonight, this evening? What's everybody getting into this week? I know I've been falling behind doing some of the photo challenge vlogs. Those have been falling behind a little bit, and of course with Thanksgiving break coming up, might be hard to crank a lot of those out in short order, but hopefully everybody's going to get out and have a chance to shoot a little bit and do some of that stuff. I've been really excited just to have a little bit more free time. Like, I'm kind of trying to catch up on everything, and you know, hopefully that'll give me some free time just to shoot, which will be really nice, because recently I haven't been doing a whole lot of shooting. I've just been kind of working on making live streams here and there, and I've been you know, trying to stay up. I'm finishing a edit of a documentary, a short mini doc that I'm working on, that I've talked to you guys about a bunch. It's about insulin access, and been kind of putting that together over the last few months, and I'm getting ready hopefully this week to release that. So trying to kind of push stuff off my plate so I have time to get out and shoot a little bit, and honestly get you know, get the X-E3. Mario said that my daughter's probably too smart to start naming fake ducks. Yeah, you're probably right, but she still plays along with that kind of stuff for my sake, which I always appreciate. Frank Danino says, trying to figure out HHS with off camera flash and still see the back of the camera when setting the camera up manually. HHS does not work for me yet. Frank, I have to tell you, I am not the guy to answer questions about flash, unfortunately. That is one area that I have not delved too deeply into. Which is kind of unfortunate, I guess, because the X100F with its leaf shutter is supposed to be really, really useful for flash photography, and so I haven't really been able to enjoy that feature particularly, because most of what I do is kind of run and gun type of stuff. You could say it's a little bit lazy too, so I'm willing to take ownership of that. And let's see, Eddie says, I just went to bed, thought I'll do some YouTube stuff. First time I went wild camping, I was kept awake all night by a bloody quacking duck at about 2,000 feet. Well, I'm sorry, I can assure you it was not my duck. My duck was completely innocent of that. Queen of San Joaquin says, I've been gearing up to do live stream talk for class in Virginia about car safety on the 30th. That is awesome. Are you doing that for your YouTube channel, Queen? Or is that something that is going to be happening independently and going to be happening on, like, are you doing that for somebody else, or is that for your personal channel, was the question that I was trying to articulate. It's been a long weekend, and I've been staring at a lot of screens, so my ability to articulate things might be a little compromised. Yep. Opinion on Nikon D80. Well, my first love was full-frame DSLR cameras, and that was largely as a result of the fact that I was trying to shoot predominantly very detailed landscape shots, highest resolution possible, and I was shooting a lot of night photography, specifically astrophotography in the backcountry, so a lot of Milky Way shots, and specifically shooting time-lapse with those. And one of the reasons why initially I went to the Nikon DSLR was because of the fact that they integrated really well with the motion control system that I was using, and dynamic perception, I believe, is what I was. Well, I still have the slider, but I haven't used it in years, and it's too heavy for me to sell, so I'm just kind of keeping it, and maybe someday I'll get back into it. But that system, that motion control system, made some really awesome time lapses. I was really stoked on the full frame light gathering ability for still photography, and then I kind of went away from the full frame once I started doing a little bit more with video and started to see some of the advantages of a smaller sensor, and also the size and the portability. And so my opinion overall on the Nikon D850, I'm sure it is a phenomenal camera. It looks really, really, really bitchin'. One of the downsides is that it looks pretty large, and relatively speaking, and the more I have been using the mirrorless cameras, and the more I've been experimenting with that stuff, like the Fuji Xe3, the X100F, even the X-T2, which is the largest, I believe the largest of their camera bodies. The X Pro 2 might be a tiny bit larger. But I have been really trying to find a sweet spot between performance and size, and for me, I feel like the size and the portability of something like the Xe3, which is tiny, is not that far behind in most cases. Now, certainly with the, I think 51 million ISO that the Nikon 850 has, like, that alone is very, very tempting. I am really tempted to get that, but I guess my overall opinion, I'm sure it's a great camera, and everybody knows Nikon makes fantastic lenses. Their optics are superb, so it's not like you're going to get a bad camera from Nikon. I think the question is, for the money that you're paying and the size that you're carrying around, what percentage of the time are you shooting astrophotography where that type of camera is really going to be necessary to have that kind of low light performance and what have you. So to be fair, that's the main thing that I know about the Nikon 850 is more about the low light than about anything else. There may be some other features that I'm, you know, not taking into account that could be really very useful, but for me, the bottom line is not just the performance of the camera and the image quality or the specs, it's also the experience of shooting with a camera, because a lot of what I do, it involves people and it involves logistics that can become more complicated with larger cameras. And when you see the difference in the way a person reacts when you pull out a DSLR with a big honking lens on it versus a tiny little, you know, this is the X Pro 1, but this is a tiny little camera and it looks like a little film camera and it's kind of cute. Don't have a lens on it right now, of course, but something like this, you know, it's very self-effacing, and it helps, it doesn't kind of distract nearly as much and get in the way. And I've shot people in documentary style with both types of cameras. I can tell you it makes a big difference. So that is my moderately uninformed perspective about the Nikon D80. I'm sure it's a great camera, but for the money, that's the biggest thing right now, because I've been shooting with the Fuji X-E3 and predominantly a little bit with the X100F, but especially the X-E3 for the amount of performance that that camera has jammed into it and what it can do for the price tag, which is one of the lowest, I believe maybe even the lowest price of the newer Fuji cameras. It gives you just about all the meat and potatoes that you would want from like their flagship camera, but the body alone is like $899. And you know, you can throw a couple good lenses on there for $2,000. You have yourself a full kit that's light, that is really solid. And for the extra money that you would spend and the extra size that you would have to carry around for something else, I would, you know, again, it all varies based on what you shoot and where. That's a big part of what it comes down to. But you know, so for some people, spending that extra money on a Nikon that has that kind of low light performance would be worthwhile. For me, even as much as I love shooting night photography, and I'm going to do a video that is all about just astrophotography and night photography with the X-E3 and kind of seeing how far one can push those, you know, those the APS-C sensor. I think it would be cool to try that. And I'm going to do a video with that. And honestly, the other day, so I just got the 27mm lens for the X-E3 because I've read a lot of places about how people are bagging on that lens, and I mean, frankly, I've heard it myself a lot. You know, that the Fuji's pancake lenses are subpar and that they're junk and that they're, you know, and I think that there is a reasonable preference that people give to more normal focal lengths, like a 35mm and 50mm equivalent focal length, and I get why people like those, and I like those personally. But when you look at the portability and the still excellent image quality that you can get from Fuji's pancakes, it's kind of hard to say, you know, that it's a bad deal. So anyways, I put that on there, and I was looking at that, and one of the shots that I wound up taking with the X-E3 on that 27mm was like looking at the image. It was completely dark. It was completely underexposed by at least 5 stops, and when I went into Lightroom, I added 5 stops of exposure into it, you know, expecting to see a train wreck, and you know, unless you really zoomed in and looked at it, it looked very good, especially given how much it had been modified to get it to be visible and look like a normally correctly exposed photograph. So I think that, I mean, I say that to say that the technology and the sensors and what is happening with these little mirrorless cameras is really exciting, and they're doing some great stuff. And I think that right now, even the performance gap between something like the X-E3 or the X-T2, you know, I think that is that difference between those is going to be shrinking a little bit, and that's kind of what I would expect to see continue happening in the future. And even right now, for a lot of people, I don't think that there's that big of a difference. But I'm going to test it out just to see a little bit more as well. King Yuzi says, now that you're doing more live streams, do you have any plans to upgrade your streaming setup? Things like a decent webcam, face cam type stuff where you can show your screen. That is also live chat, so people watching after can see the chat and the questions being asked. That is a very good idea. That is something that I have thought about a lot. One of the things that is a bit of an issue is that the space that I have for live streaming, and basically I'm going to give you an excuse. I'm going to say that right up front. I'm giving you an excuse. I think it's a good excuse, but hear me out and you can kind of make your own determinations from there. So the space in which I am working is very, very small. It is still, it's larger than the, it's just basically this little room here. It's certainly larger than the closet that I was in before, but it is also my bedroom, and I have to have enough room to kind of be able to move about in here. And in order to be able to do live streams in a timely fashion, I need to leave things set up. So having fewer things set up and having a more minimalistic setup that does it, because my computer is not in here, I don't have a computer nearby or anything like that. In the event that I were to set up a more involved live streaming infrastructure, I guess you could say, it would require more stuff and more stuff being set up most of the time, unless I was going to break everything down, set everything up, which would then make it harder for me to do those live streams. So, and the other part of it too is that I'm still traveling a decent amount, and so there are times when I'm going to be, kind of back and forth, where I'm going to be back in the closet, back, when I go to visit my family, and, rather than just not do a live stream, I want to be able to do live streams, and I wouldn't be able to bring all that gear with me when I'm mobile. So I guess the other part of it too is I don't want to upgrade anything until I can consistently use things at an upgraded standard or at an upgraded level. And yeah, it is true that you can do a lot of that stuff with phone apps, although even there, what I would really want to do is I would want to be able to live stream through my GH5, HDMI out, and, at least be able to do 1080. And there are a couple of different devices I've seen where you can do that. The only issue is just that one of the things that makes me that makes live streams appealing to me is that I can set them up and break them down really, really easily, and it goes together really fast. So I am going to look into some options to see if there's a middle ground, something that I could do that would be a little bit different for the live streams, because it would be nice to, like you said, to get the chat features in there and be able to show stuff on the computer screen. I would like to be able to do that, but right now it's kind of there are other things on the agenda that I'm trying to kind of keep up with that are making, both in time and resources to put out for that is well, and that's part of the thing, is that with the apps, as you say, they're mostly kind of cheap and stupid looking, but technically it can be done, and that's true. And I guess my point is that, rather than spending more time and resources to do something that's not going to be a significant upgrade that I'm not going to be able to consistently use, I would rather wait until I can get to a point and say, okay, here's something that is significantly better that I'm going to be able to use the vast majority of the time, and kind of work it that way. And I think that is a possibility in the near future, but that's something I also have to kind of wait and see, because right now I'm still in between, both with space and also resources and time, which is another big part of things, because with documentary projects that I'm working on, and also with school and classes that I have a lot on the old plate, as it were, and I'm getting ready to go final exams and all that stuff coming up. So Lightroom or Photoshop, for me, I personally prefer Lightroom by a very long margin. Hey, good evening, Peter. Good to see you here. Yeah, definitely Lightroom. I mean, Photoshop, if you're doing more manipulative stuff, not to sound like, negative or whatever towards Photoshop, because I don't have any, I'm not one of those people that has like issues with using Photoshop. Like, I don't think that it's ethically inferior, even if people modify their images significantly. I typically prefer Lightroom just because of the fact that most of what I like to do I can do in there, and it's really simple, really user-friendly. I feel like the usability between Lightroom and Photoshop is significantly, there's a significant disparity between those two. I think the Photoshop is a lot harder to use, and certainly you can do, you know, a lot more with it, but I enjoy using Lightroom, and it gives me everything that I need in a simple setup. Yeah, I probably am a little bit tired. This weekend has been kind of crazy for me because honestly, I bombed one of my quizzes on Friday because I've been like trying to get out a rough cut of the documentary that I'm working on, and also trying to get everything kind of set up so that over Thanksgiving I'll be able to have a little bit of time to spend with my family and kind of get my schoolwork done and my YouTube stuff done and the documentary stuff done so that I have a little bit of free time. So that's kind of, yeah, that has, you're not wrong. I am probably a little bit tired. Lightroom tutorials, you know, I've done a handful of Lightroom tutorials, and I did not get a huge response to them. I did a couple of Lightroom tutorials, like maybe 5 or 6. I did a series of them back in the winter, and they're in a playlist that if you go on my homepage, you can go through there, my playlist, and you can see those. And those were, you know, they were nice, but I feel like a lot of what I do in Lightroom is just fairly experimental. And so rather than, you know, it makes it difficult for me to tell other people how to edit their images other than just saying, well, kind of here's where I like to start, this is what I like to do, and I've already done a playlist of that hasn't really, you know, none of those videos, even when I was putting them out, didn't really get a lot of excitement from folks in the community here. So it was kind of one of those things I said, yeah, you know, I did it once, probably don't plan to do it again. Honestly, at least not in the short term, unless people have specific questions. You know, if there are specific questions you guys have that, like, something that you really wanted to know specifically, and I think that really is the key to the whole thing. You know, is whether or not you want to have something that's a little bit more specific, like here's one photo, here's the after, here's the before, and this is the process to get from A to B. And that is something that I could certainly do. Right now, my problem is that before I start doing new things, I have to have a bunch of stuff that's already kind of in the works that I have to finish up. So definitely a good idea, and you know, keep pinging me about that, because that might happen here sooner or later. Difference between the new Lightroom and the older Lightroom. Basically, the one is Lightroom for mobile. It's basically meant to kind of sync with the photos that you upload from a mobile device, and then you can edit them on desktop and vice versa. And then the other is more desktop based. At least that's what I have gotten out of it. I don't use Lightroom Mobile a whole bunch because Lightroom Mobile is mostly for JPEGs, and on an iPad, I suspect it would be significantly better. And I say better in terms of it being suited to my needs. It's not that it's, you know, that it sucks or that it's not good. Like, Lightroom for mobile is great. You can do a lot of really good stuff on there, but the way that I like to edit my photos, I want to have the availability and the ability to go into a photo and to really do, you know, to edit things in different sections with brushes and to kind of, you know, adjust parts of an image independently from each other, and that's a lot harder to do on an iPhone. On an iPad, if you have like a stylus or some sort of, you know, any kind of a pad or tablet, you could probably do that a little bit more effectively, and it might be better. The other part of things is that, you know, when you're operating on the mobile Lightroom, you're not able to put raw images onto your phone, and that's characteristically where I use it. The desktop version is better suited to what I like to do, which is predominantly with raw photos. Personally, and I know that this may not appeal to everybody and everyone's sensibilities here, but the whole, like, everything being cloud-based kind of doesn't really agree with me. I like having things that are you know, it's here and this is where it stays, and it's nice and neat and square and just finite. I like that. To me, the whole idea of everything being cloud-based, and then it's like you're trying to sort through ethereal things that aren't really there, but and Peter, yeah, like you say, it's a great idea, but I don't really use it either, and I don't know. I like to have, it's the same thing with my workflow, and I talked about this a little bit on Friday. You know, I don't like having things out of, I like my digital spaces to be very much concurrent to a physical space. The way I envision my computer storage is something that, like, I could envision it being actual physical images in like an office, in a filing cabinet, in drawers in the filing cabinet with partitions in those drawers. It all is just like that same type of structure. But when you start putting things into clouds, it starts to, at least conceptually, it just feels a little bit different. And it's a little bit less comfortable to me. So yeah, Lightroom Classic, I believe that's the Creative Cloud version of that, is what we've all been using. Thank you. Was that Dwayne or Dwight? Daniel. Something with the D. I'm sorry. Trying to see the comments. Daniel Walbridge. Good evening, Daniel. I don't believe I have seen your name pop up around here, at least not for a while. If you've been here, I don't recall, but good to see you here. Yeah, where is this cloud? That's part of the issue. And again, it's not really, for me, it's not a matter so much of being afraid that somebody's going to access my stuff, or that they're going to lose my stuff, or that I don't even have control over it. I like to, well, the other thing too with cloud storage stuff that makes me a little bit hesitant to use it is I always feel like I have more hanging I always feel like I have more hanging over me in terms of limitation to what I can put in there. And because I shoot a lot of different things, I like to be able to just dump everything in one area and then sort it out and organize it the way that I want to. And, you know, I can understand how for some people that the software can become part of the organization. For me, I want the organization to be strictly my own and to be very simple and nothing fancy, and then the software is just to act upon files in the organizational structure that I have specified in my own way. And I mean, there is no, I don't have any reason to say or to believe that that is better or more superior to any other way of doing things. It's just, that's what I like, and that's what allows me to keep a mental track of like what I have where. So part of that is that, you know, the stuff that I would put in the cloud on Lightroom Mobile, for example, it would kind of create one more partition that I have some stuff in Google Drive here, some stuff in Google Photos there, a couple different accounts for either one based on, you know, what it's from and like what era, what time frame it's from. And then there's also my, you know, hard drives that I have, and then my network attached storage drive, which has, you know, its own cloud, so I can access that. And like, there's so many different things that I kind of want to just have the one safe bet where I know I can just put all of my stuff in there, so it's out of sight, out of mind type of deal. And you know, that's kind of my logic, and I don't know if that makes any sense, or if it if it has any value outside of my own thought process, you know, because everybody certainly is comfortable with different things. But I have a lot of photos from a pretty long time, and so like I've, you know, it's been, and also my taxonomies have changed a little bit over the years too. So I'm keen to be able to keep everything in one place. And with the cloud storage things, like you get X amount for free or X amount for a pretty low price, and then everything else, you know, if you want more storage, you're paying a significant amount, and then that always kind of calls into question, well, can I really afford to do that over the long term? Whereas if I just buy a hard drive, it's like I have that hard drive, I have this much space on it, done deal. Like I can always have my stuff on there, and I can even for a flat rate buy another hard drive and back those two up so I have some redundancy, and then, you know, and then that's it. So it's just, it's a little bit simpler on one end of the process in the way that, you know, that my mind encodes or decodes that information. King Uzi says, I managed to sync my workflow around Google Drive. All my devices are connected and the files are there when I need them. I've started to use Google Drive a little bit as well, and eventually I may go in there. As well, and start to, you know, kind of convert more of my stuff into that. It's just, for me, I have a hard time taking everything and dumping everything over. I kind of tend to do it a little bit at a time, but that's something I have started to do because it is very handy. Peter Kent says, talking about Lightroom workflows, when do you make a new catalog? I make a new one every project, but I know a lot of people that prefer a new one every year. Oh boy. Well, you're gonna, this may, hey Kit, good to see you here. This may, again, reveal my my position as somewhat of a Luddite when it comes to workflow stuff. I don't do anything, I don't really rely on the catalog in Lightroom to do anything for me. I don't make new catalogs. What I do is I will just make sure that the folders are where I can access them, so that Lightroom knows where to access everything. And then what I do is I just structure my folders based on, you know, where, you know, when and where and what I'm shooting. And then I just make sure that Lightroom is able to find those folders so that I can just go into my history or my, you know, previous imports or whatever, and I can look at the files that are, or the resources that are attached there, and that's what I do. Yeah, it sounds a lot like what you're doing, Kit. Everything pretty much manual. So I do all of my organization aside from Lightroom, and then I just import those at their given locations into Lightroom, and I make sure that if I move those files around or what have you, that Lightroom knows, hey, that file that you imported from my desktop before, that is now in my, you know, main network attached storage drive, that's in the archive. So now that if I go into Lightroom and I click on, you know, November 2017, it will pull those files from out of that, you know, the last place that, wherever I move that, those folders. But I do it that way rather than backing anything up or making catalogs within Lightroom itself, because then my concern, and this probably is not a legitimate concern, I'll admit that this is probably just me being OCD, but one of the things that has carried over for me from video editing is this fear of having wasted space that is just like backup copies from imports of stuff that I'm not actually using anymore, and I don't want to have to go in and delete stuff, and I don't want to have stuff in there that is taking up space either. So I would rather just kind of have everything, you know, I don't like to give the software any sort of control over, you know, what I'm working on, or like the organizational properties and copying and backing up. I try to keep that to a bare minimum, because it just stresses me out to no end, and it probably isn't, you know, isn't necessary. But I just feel like a lot of these editing programs, one of the things that they do is they tend to create more, just create more data and copy and make all these little variations of the stuff that you have, and then it can be very difficult to remove those things in a way that you're certain is non-destructive, because you're always kind of doing, you know, check and double check and recheck to make sure you're not getting rid of any of your source files. And so it just adds a little bit of, for me, it adds a little bit of confusion and stress to the process if I have to worry about that. So I just, you know, yeah, everybody definitely has their own process, and that's one of the reasons why I think it's funny when people ask me, is because I think that most people who ask me what my process is, they already have a process. They just want to hear somebody else's process because they want to confirm that their process is not wrong. But like at the end of the day, if it does what you want it to do, it's reasonably redundant, and it works for you, then good on you, you know. Queen of Sandwichine asks, do I have an external hard drive? Yes, I have many of them. So I have one external hard drive that's a 16 terabyte drive that I can also access remotely when that remote feature is working. That's kind of like my main hard drive. That's the brain of everything, where I keep all my video, anything that I'm going to keep indefinitely, it all goes in there. That 16 terabyte drive, I have it in a RAID array. So that means that the four terabyte drives that make up that array, they are set to kind of share data in between them. So if any one of those 4 drives fails, then I have redundancy and I won't lose anything. And I can also upgrade those drives to like make it a 24, like I could do 4 8 terabyte drives or what have you, which I'm actually going to do at some point in the future. So there's some redundancy there. I can access it remotely. It's a really nice setup. Yeah, I have my working drives. I call them my working drives because, like, when I'm out shooting, when I'm out traveling, I'll have 1 or 2 1 terabyte drives that I'll use to back up some stuff. But most of the time, like when I'm shooting a project, I will use like a 4 terabyte drive, like you say, and you can get them off of Amazon. Nice ones. Western Digital, I think, makes a couple of ones, and Golf or G Drive Technology, whatever they're called, the little silver ones, for about $100, 4 terabytes, and you don't need any bus power, so you just plug them in via USB. Super fast. I can edit video off them. I can do stills, and then I can keep the edits that I make of the stills. I'll put the edits on my laptop as sort of like a backup. And then I will build my video library on the external drive, so I'm not clogging up my computer. And those hard drives are fast enough easily for me to edit even 4K, especially using proxy, which I know this is kind of getting in the weeds a little bit, and now we're talking about video stuff. But yeah, those 4 terabyte drives are kind of my bread and butter. I have 2 of them right now, and then I have 4 1 terabyte drives. But the 1 terabyte drives I tend to use more for backing up and doing backups of things that are like more related to my actual desktop on my computer. And then the 4 terabyte drives are what I used for projects when I'm shooting, so that I can back stuff up and that I can also have a way to edit my media without having to put it actually onto my computer. Yeah, 4 terabyte drives can definitely hold a lot, and the funny thing is, when you start doing video files, you start to make those dense, and then when you start using 4K video files, you make much bigger dents, and then when you start using like the GH5 4K video files, you start making craters. And that's one of the reasons why I haven't gone like with the full-on like video capabilities that are in the GH5, is just because, like, some of their 400 megabytes per second, which I would have to get new cards to shoot that stuff. The video files would be enormous. And so yeah, the video files definitely change your data usage by a lot. Peter says, I fill about 5 terabytes a year. I buy a new 5 terabyte every Black Friday for $100 at Fry's, though. Nice. Yeah, I usually buy 1 4 terabyte drive, maybe 2 a year. It depends, because a lot of times what'll happen is when I finish a project and I'm satisfied with my final edit of a project, I will remove any of the raw media. I'll get rid of it if it's not something that I anticipate reusing, which is probably just lazy. There are certainly instances where it would might be beneficial to have that stuff, but I feel like I'm reasonably happy with the stuff that I have. I make my decisions in the edit, and then that's that. So that's usually what I do, and then but what I've started to do now is I've started, just instead of deleting stuff and getting reusing the same 4 TB drive is I'll try to, you know, use the 4 TB drive as much as possible and then just archive that drive and then just put it away and then get another one, kind of like what you're suggesting, Peter, just so that I have raw footage if I need it, or if another thing that I found, and I didn't used to understand this because it's only recently that it started to happen, where somebody will come to me, like a company will come to me and be like, oh hey, that movie that you made 3 years ago, we would like to license it and we want to use some of your footage or blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, I have the YouTube resolution, you know, edit that I made, and that'll have to do. And most of the time, you know, most use cases, if a company really wants to use your stuff, you can work around it, or, you know, so it's like I'm always in this, I'm in this battle where, and this causes me a lot of stress, I'm not gonna lie, where I want to just, like, the most liberating thing, I would love to be able to just put all of my old media, just like have only finished stuff here and put all of my source media in a big virtual dumpster and just like flush down the toilet and just like all of it gone, and then just like not, and just have clean, like I just want to have a big hard drive with nothing on it, just to be like, it's so empty and like minimalistic and postmodern, you know, like one of those Manhattan apartments that has like nothing in the kitchen but just like the one like little faucet, and like, you know, everything is just like white tile and like maybe, I don't know, black mahogany or whatever, you know, that kind of, like, I want to have a hard drive that has that level of minimalism to it. But then on the other hand, it's like, if I get rid of this stuff and I keep, in my mind is going, like, the hard drive in my mind is producing these scenarios where it's like, yeah, but what if somebody comes from this and they want to do that, and then they're like, hey, do you have this file? And I'm like, damn it, I deleted that file and they would have paid me $100,000 for like this, you know, great idea that I had that didn't get off the ground the first time, if only I hadn't deleted the source files. So usually I tend to err on the side of, you know what, if it's that good of an idea and it's that important, whatever it is that I'm doing, I'm going to go out and I'm going to shoot it again, because I can travel for cheap, and even if I can't, I'll spend $500 and go out and shoot it again, because I like doing that and it's fun for me. And because I'm not doing this stuff full time, I have the luxury of saying, you know, yeah, I'm going to go out, I'll do whatever I got to do if need be, rather than, you know, so I tend to err on the side of getting rid of source files most of the time, unless it's really good quality stuff that I have some vision for the future, or if it's some kind of like ongoing project, like for example the Banting's Ghost documentary. I'm shooting that in episodic format, and right now I just put my rough cut out for my patrons to have a look at before I kind of move ahead with finishing the edits. And what I do is just kind of, you know, I'm going to keep all of that raw media until that project concludes. And then when it concludes, I'll probably keep that for a while after, just to be able to say, make sure nobody comes along or there's not an opportunity somehow to do like a full documentary picture, maybe where somebody would want to get behind it, or I can pitch that idea. Then at least I still have all the source files. I can say, yeah, we have all these episodes that are out there in the world, but we also have this other stuff too that we can use. The thing that I honestly take the most seriously, and this may be a bad reflection on me, this may be very, I don't know exactly how to say this, but this may reflect on me in a very Ken Rockwell sort of way, and nothing against Ken Rockwell, but I always think of him when I have this thought, and the thing that I put the most importance on are the files, like in the videos and the raw footage and stuff of my daughter. Good evening, QA, have a good evening. Thank you for checking in with us tonight. Glad to have you here. The things that I really put the most effort into backing up are the pictures and the videos of my daughter, because those are the things there's no amount of money or professional accolade or anything that would outweigh, in my mind, losing those files. And so I have those backed up in like a million, not really a million different places, but I have them in varying resolutions and formats in many different places, because to me those are very, 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 very precious. So that kind of helps me put in perspective, you know, that helps me put in perspective all the other things that I have. And yeah, I mean, honestly, it's like, you know, when you're in the moment, like when my daughter was first born, I was taking a lot of photos, and it was just like, oh yeah, these are the photos that I'm working with. But then after like 6 months, you build up like this huge amount of photos, and then you look at the photos you just took, and then you look at the photos from when she was just born, and you're like, man, 6 months just went by. Where did that time go? And then 2 years, and then 3.5 years, and which is where I'm at right now with her. And you know, I look at the videos of her when she was really little, and I wish that I had shot more stuff back then. And fortunately, I kind of had that presence of mind, and like you forget so much stuff. And like I have a journal where I write her letters. Like I try to do it like every week or two. You know, from the time she was first born, like I wrote her a letter saying like, hey, here's kind of like a diary type of thing, to be like, hey, here's what I was doing when you don't remember much about anything other than, you know, nursing and sleeping and pooping. Like, here's kind of my experience of things. And, you know, so I've really allowed that OCD of like, I have to capture everything that a lot of times goes into vlogs, and certainly was part of my inspiration to vlog when we were living on the road in a trailer back in 2016. But like, I've really allowed that share everything, capture everything mentality to run wild when it comes to, you know, my experience of being a dad, because, you know, that's something I'm only going to do once. And I mean, who knows, like, you know, it's not impossible, but that's something I plan. I don't think there's going to be, you know, that we would wind up having more kids or adopting or anything, because right now, you know, with my wife's cancer diagnosis and all that stuff, like having more kids is not, you know, that ship has definitively biologically sailed. But it makes me very glad that I was able to approach that with no regrets, because of the fact that when, you know, I was, you know, a dad for the first time, I didn't feel bad about being like, yeah, I'm going to spend money on a new camera. Yeah, I'm going to buy new hard drives. Yeah, I'm going to just like take pictures and video of everything. And I'm just going to just like, you know, go get after it. And even then, like, I still have nightmares about, you know, like hard drives crashing and things going wrong. And like, I don't know and that's one of the reasons why I'm always like printing, doing the free prints of everything. It's because like, no matter what happens, I want it to be idiot proof that I'm always going to have those. And I mean, and it's even that, right? Like, that's my heart. That's how I feel. But honestly, being realistic, I know that that's futile. She's going to grow up. Those pictures are going to be pictures that are not going to be at the forefront. And it's going to be, you know, that's kind of the deal. That's the way that it's going to go. But I'm going to give good effort to hang on to that stuff and really make the most of it and enjoy it while I have it, and try to stash that up so that I can enjoy it further down the road instead of forgetting, because like, we forget so much stuff, you know. And I think that with a lot of things, you know, that's been one of the biggest values that I found with photography and even vlogging, you know, just stupid vlogs that, you know, at the time, and even for most other people looking at them, where it's just like, who the hell cares about that, you know? It's just completely ridiculous, doesn't matter. But then I look at it a year later and I'm like, man, I'm so glad I made that vlog that I thought was completely worthless and ridiculous, because that captured a couple of moments that I would have never remembered, you know, from that day that, you know, we were out on Liberty Lake in Spokane or whatever, you know. The cancer thing, it was kind of, I talked about it briefly at one point, but it hasn't been a big, you know, a very big highlight, just because, you know, I kind of let her lead with that. But then when she was like you know, told everybody about it. I was like, yeah, I'll tell folks about it. And thank God, you know, the whole thing literally came out as good as it possibly could. You know, no chemo, no radiation, any of that stuff. And hopefully, you know, there's still that 5-year window where you have to kind of keep going back for scans and kind of see where everything is at. But, you know, the hope is that everything continues in that way, but it was definitely tough for a little bit, and that was even a best case scenario with that too. You know, it's like, so I can't even really wrap my head around what it would be like to have a more, you know, a worse outcome, I guess you could say, or a more challenging outcome there with cancer. Is something that it's hard, because like I know how I deal with my diagnosis, and for me, having the ability to talk to people about my diagnosis and make my, you know, chronic illness a part of what I do publicly, it helps me to stay positive about it. But when somebody else that close to you has a serious illness, it's like you're carrying a lot of the weight of that too, and at the same time, it's not yours to manage the way that you want, so you kind of have like you have the short end of the stick on both regards, because you have to deal with it, and you also can't decide how to manage it, because none of it's really yours, but some of it kind of feels like it is. But yeah. Kit says she won't like it from the ages of 14 to 20, and then she will really and enjoy looking at them with you. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that, Kit. I anticipate that. It's funny, I think, like with little boys, they're in some ways a little bit harder when they're younger, and then when, you know, you get into the teenage years, they are a little bit less, maybe a little bit less standoffish. Girls, when they're teenagers, they can be kind of a nightmare. But at the same time, I am pretty. I'm a very durable person. I will say that I can take a lot of shit from people who I love and who hurt me, and you know, that's the one thing. If there's one thing I would put on my business card that well, actually, that most people probably wouldn't understand or would think is overly personal, it would be that I'm a very durable person. I can take a lot. And that's not necessarily how I would want to start off a business relationship, is inviting somebody to, you know, put me through a whole bunch of suffering. But as far as that kind of stuff goes, I'm definitely dreading that too, because like, I was thinking about it the other night. I was texting my wife, and I was like, dude, I just realized, like, it just hit me that, like, right now, like, every time I see my daughter, like, I run up to her, pick her up, you know, lift her up in the air, swing her around, give her a big hug and a kiss, and like pinch her little cheeks, and like tell her how much I love her, and just like, you know, shower her with all this affection, and she's just like, and it's so nice, you know. And then I realized, like, someday I am not going to be able to do that. Like, she's still gonna love me, and I'm still gonna love her, but I'm just not going to be able to do that. Like, I think about it now, it's like, my mom doesn't do that to me anymore. My dad doesn't do that to me. I mean, hell, we barely, you know, it's like everything changes so much when you get older. And I'm just like, there's part of me that I want to hold on to that stuff. But there's also part of me that wants to be really careful that I don't hold on to that infantile stuff so much that I lose the ability to be able to relate to them as adults, and then we can't have, you know, then it's like I'm stuck in the past. Like, I see this a lot with parents, and honestly with my own dad, and you know, I love my dad and I have a lot of respect for him, but when I was a little kid, he didn't know how to relate to me as a little kid. He related to me as though I was an adult. Like, I would go out and split wood and, like, you know, resurface the driveway and stuff, and he'd be like, oh, why aren't you done yet? Like, it's not the, you know, it was like I was one of the guys on the job. And then now that I'm an adult and he's, like, kind of grown up and kind of mellowed out a little bit, like, he caught up to where he was supposed to be when I was a 5 or 6 year old, and so now he wants to relate to me like I was a little kid, and he never really learned the right time and the right way to relate to me as an adult versus a little kid. And I want to make sure that, you know, I'm not you know, setting myself and my daughter up for, you know, kind of complicated or you know, it's like I'm so aware of the fact that, you know, we make investments today in relationships that are either going to be there for us when we're older, that make us happy and allow us to like live out the remainder of our lives with a level of fulfillment, or we, you know, cut ourselves off from relationships because right now we don't really need them, and then when you get to the point where you need those people in your life, you know, they just kind of, they're not in the picture anymore. Good evening, Tiff. Good to see you here. I was hoping you would be able to make it in. All the Living Vertical All-Stars are in here. King Yuzi said, my sister went through something similar and has just celebrated my nephew's first birthday. That is awesome. That is really fantastic. And is it your first nephew or is it your second nephew? And I just ask that, Yusuf, because I know that, like, in a lot of ways I look at what happened with my situation or with our situation, and the fact that it all happened after she was able to kind of have that, you know, have a kid, that made it all, that's awesome. That's super. That's a bigger win than even yet, because I know being able to have the fact that, like, all of this stuff happened, but that it didn't interfere with Lilo coming into the picture is something that, you know, we're both really thankful for. And it could have, you know, very easily could have been much, much worse or much different, let's just say. So, yeah, absolutely. And yes, Tiff, so you have wandered into... you've wandered into a photography discussion, gone down some rabbit trails, and, you know, casual stuff. That's what happens when I go off the beaten path of, let me talk about the camera that I'm shooting with now, and then we get into good personal stuff, large talk rather than small talk. But I don't do small talk very well anyways. Which is okay. Yeah, and ducks, that's true. I forgot about the duck, which you probably saw in the thumbnail, but the duck is still here front and center. I do have a website, Daniel, thank you for asking. My professional website, if you will, it's stephenreichert.com, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Reichert, R-I-C-H-E-R-T.com, stephenreichert.com. I should probably start linking that and stuff. My semi-professional website which is like, it's a professional website, but it's more geared towards my documentary projects and my blogging, is livingvertical.org, and that is linked in the show notes of all of my videos. And actually, you can get to my portfolio, because if you go to livingvertical.org, there's a link on top that says portfolios. And then that just takes you externally to stephenreichert.com, which is my professional website, and you can see some of my video and photo portfolios and some of the companies I've worked with and all that stuff there. And I debated starting a second blog in addition to all the million other things that I'm not doing very well right now. Because I have so much on my plate. I debated starting a second blog, but I don't think I'm going to do that right now. But I've always wanted to... you know, have a different type of blog that was a little bit more about, kind of closer to what my YouTube channel is, frankly, that's more about like nuts and bolts of photography and cameras, rather than just being like the stories of what I'm shooting, but actually kind of dig into like how I'm shooting it and what I'm using, and kind of gear reviews and stuff like that. Because I love talking about I love talking about cameras. I can't help it. I've had some people like it. And I think part of it too is like, I always feel like that's where I get more traction, and so a lot of what I wind up enjoying, it has to do with what my audience enjoys and what they are excited to talk about and ask questions about and share as well. You know, so yeah, could start a forum, but then like everybody would start, you know, yelling at each other, and it would be crazy, and people would be, you know, people would go nuts. No, I'm just kidding. I stay off of the photography forums. I'm not against the idea of a forum, but honestly, right now I feel like like what I usually do when I'm thinking about this stuff is I think, okay, where do I go if I have a question, or if I want to do something related, or if I want to interact with people. And usually what I'll do is I'll go to Reddit, or I will go on Twitter, or sometimes even on Instagram. And unless I were not able to find what I was looking for there, then I would say, okay, let me start something else. Because I've done a forum before, not for anything photography related, but for like type 1 diabetes related, which is, granted, it's a niche, it's very esoteric, but it was a pretty substantial niche within the type 1 community, and it just like, it was one of those things where most of the people who wanted that kind of connection, they were getting it already on Facebook in groups, or they were getting it on Reddit or somewhere else, and so it was just kind of an out of the way stop for them that they weren't really, that was just too inconvenient, and then it just wound up being a time suck for me, so I just bailed on it. But it is an idea, and I would be open to it in the future if it works out. Kit asks, what's going on with the photo challenge? Didn't see a video on them for a while since the first one, actually. The photo challenge is, well, okay, so the photo challenge have kind of stalled out just a little bit. I'm going to try to make a video this week, just kind of wrapping up where we're at with the photo challenges. The second and third one, I made videos about those. The third photo challenge video was in a live stream, but it was titled the third photo challenge. That's in the title of it. It's one of the live streams from, I think, like 2 weeks ago. And so that was, the first one was, manual focus was the first photo challenge. The second photo challenge was self-portraits, and then the third was using blurriness or unsharpness. And so basically what has happened is, we're kind of wound those down. I think what I'm probably going to do at this point is, over the holidays, I'm probably going to curtail any new photo challenges until once we're through the holidays, and have a little bit more time to get back into it there, because right now I have a handful of videos that I'm kind of backlogged on, that I need to edit, that I need to get out, and the photo challenges were not really getting a lot of response, which, again, the response isn't necessarily, on a broader sense, isn't necessarily the biggest thing that I'm looking for. I think that there's definitely potential there. It's something that I want to continue doing. But I also think that it might make more sense to start up photo challenges again in the new year. So we already know that there's about 10 to 12 people who are solidly on board with the photo challenges and who are going to be there, hopefully. And I think that we might have a better chance of really gaining some momentum behind that if we start it around the first of the year, to kind of get people that are kind of doing New Year's resolutions involving new photo projects or what have you. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I am going to do one more video just to kind of button everything up, because I've been really inspired and proud of you guys who've been crushing it, putting out good work, and I want to put that out there so that everybody has a chance to kind of see it wrapped up a little bit, and to kind of put a pin in it for now. At least that's my feeling. While I kind of get some other loose ends tied up, and kind of take stock of where the channel is and where we're going and what we need to do to move ahead. Because right now there's a lot going on, a lot happening both in my life and then also just within the sphere of what I'm shooting and what's happening here on the channel, and I want to make sure that I for me, one of the things I think a lot of people in any sort of creative partition tend to bite off more than we can chew a lot of times, and it can be really easy to throw a bunch of stuff to the wall, see what sticks, but then at some point you have to say, okay, this is doing better than this, and this is what I'm going to kind of put in and pull out based on what what was working. So photo challenge has been really fun. I've been enjoying them, but I just think that for right now, I'm kind of following the path of most viewership and most, excitement from on the channel, at least for right now. And obviously, you can probably tell I feel a little guilty about that, which is the reason why it took me 10 minutes to explain that, because, I really do like the photo challenge stuff, and I always feel like there is this perception, and some of it I put on myself, some of it I've gotten from other people, that it's like if you're talking about gear, that's a lesser thing, and that like you should be talking about, the artsy fartsy stuff with photography, and like some people do that really well. I just don't feel like I'm one of them. I feel like I'm always running out of things to say, and I'm just like, yeah, like point your camera at the thing, and if you don't like it, move, and then get down a little bit lower, and then take another picture and see how you like it. And it never sounds as good as like, you know, what's his name? When Ted Forbes, you know, he's just so like, you know, flowing and eloquent talking about all the artistic, because he's an artist. You know, I'm not an artist. I'm a hack with a with an iPhone and a credit card and a couple of Fuji cameras. That's all I am. But we have fun doing it, and like you all say, well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate the artsy fartsy. These days I'm more fartsy than artsy, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I mean, I do like to get into the inspirational side of things too. You know, that is something that I like to do, but to me, I don't know that I can make an entire channel. You know what it really is? I'm selfish, and I look at things and I say, what is it that I feel like talking? Like, what feels real to me today that I can talk about, that I'm interested in, that I have feelings about, that I want to be like, this is a thing that I want you to know. And right now, like, the thing that I'm really stoked about is how insanely awesome the XE3 is. It's an amazing little camera, and I'm like really excited to be able to kind of take that information and put that out there in a way that's useful, and maybe that pisses some people off because I'm going to, you know, give favorable reviews and feedback on the pancake lenses that everyone hates on. You know, and then there are some days when there is something a little bit more introspective that is brewing in my mind, and I can put that stuff out there, and it works. So, yeah, trial and error, like you say, that's right, and we're all trying together. And yeah, that's a good idea, Kit. The day 6 of a 7-day. Black and white photography challenge. It's like I want to do that, and you know what? Maybe, oh man, I'm debating if I should threaten to do a 365 project, and maybe that would be a cool thing to do. I mean, since I haven't been able to do. Well, here's the thing: like a 365 project would be a little bit different than the photo challenges, because the photo challenges are easy enough to do. Like, the action of doing them is just making videos about the photo challenges is a little bit more challenging at this point, or at least it has been since I've kind of gone into the second half of the semester, and I've been kind of struggling to make videos, which is part of the reason why I've been doing more live streams rather than editing videos. And I'm saving my edited videos mostly for the ones that are going to be more higher performing content, like, I don't want to say hero content, but for lack of a better term, right? So a 365 project could be something that might be a nice way to do that. And I gotta put some thought into that, and I would love to hear, you know, you guys, if you guys have comments, suggestions, thoughts about that too. What would be a cool thing to do that maybe something that we could do together? And if it is starting up the photo challenges again, I think that would be cool. I'm open to doing that. I kind of have a hankering to just do a 365 project, something that would be able to exist and that would be fun and that would be useful, that could intersect with what I'm doing on YouTube at various points, that I could reference it and make videos about it, but that would also be able to exist on a parallel course on Twitter or Instagram that would, you know, go along of its own volition without, you know. Yes, Queen of San Joaquin, I am human just like the rest of you, with the exception of the fact that I processing. Trying to think of how to say this. I was debating whether I should make some facetious comments. I am human like the rest of you, with the exception of, let's just say that I rely on drugs, multiple daily injections of insulin to survive, and I'm a little bit bionic, and I eat a weird diet. But yes. Kit, yes, a year is a huge commitment, and I'm not trying to be smug when I say this. I actually did a 365 project a couple years ago, where I was actually climbing every day, and on top of video and photo, every day for a year. So I definitely can appreciate the effort that goes into a 365 project. But at that time, my focus, the 365 component, was more heavily focused on the climbing than it was on the photography. I mean, I was taking multiple pictures every day and posting multiple things every day for that entire year, but the climbing was really the main focus. I would like to have a chance to just do a 365 photo project where the photography is really the centerpiece, rather than, you know, having some activity that I am photographing. Although maybe that is, you know, maybe that having an activity built into it would make more sense, and it would give me some accountability that could help me. So I got to think about that a little bit, you know. You know, it worked. It worked. I climbed every single day for 365 days. Not every day was the same amount of climbing. Not every day was the same difficulty of climbing. But at the end of the year, I sent my hardest climb that I've ever climbed to date in my life, and it was pretty awesome because I didn't think I was going to do it. I thought that I was going to fall. I thought I was going to fall off on my last day, and that I wasn't going to make it up, and I did, and it was pretty epic. You know, something near and dear to my heart. May not necessarily make the grade as far as everyone else is concerned, but Tiff says, I think you're making your own niche and you're doing that. Thank you. I appreciate that. You guys, and honestly, and I'm not just trying to be a kiss ass here when I say this, like, you guys that interact with me the most and that are on these live streams, you guys largely, whether you want to or like it or not, you all wind up shaping a lot of what I do in my, you know, with my content, because to a large extent, I have a hard time making content for imaginary people out there. I have a much easier time making content for, oh, I'm making a video, this, like, Tiff might find this interesting, or, you know, like, this is a question. Peter suggested that I get the XE3 because he wants to get it. I'm like, I was kind of suggestible at the moment, and hey, well, look, now I got the XE3, right? So, you know, I wind up making content that ultimately is for the people that interact with me the most and that are my closest friends on here. And so that, you know, that helps a lot. Whether or not that you guys intend it to go that way or not, that typically is what happens. So yes, Peter, scrolling back a little bit, Peter, who was the catalyst, the enabler for my addiction, or my getting the XE3. I did get I've decided to completely, I mean, look, I'm not going to be completely financially irresponsible, so, but if I can take one piece of gear or a couple of pieces of gear that I don't really use, I can sell them on eBay, which, for the record, I am about 99.9% sure that the XE3 is going to replace the X100F. So if anybody wants or knows anybody who wants the X100F or the X Pro 1, I'm going to be consolidating my Fuji gear just down to the XE3, and I'll probably... You did, that's true. You did say to sell the XE or the X100F first, and but I think the XE3 is going to be it. And you know, if anybody in my audience wants it, I'm gonna, you know, try to offer it. Probably I'll do a live stream where I mention it a little more prominently than buried in the 72nd, 73rd minute. But if any of you all are looking for an X Pro 1 in serviceable condition or an X100F, holler at me, and I'd be happy to talk turkey about that. But yeah, I've determined that if I can sell gear that I'm not using as much in order to buy new gear that I'm interested in using, I'm not going to feel bad about that, and I'm just going to go with it because I enjoy it. So you got to do that. Peter, yes, I got the 27mm pancake lens. It arrived the other day, and I got to tell you, for all the bad comments I've heard about the pancake lenses, really, really phenomenal, really tiny. I haven't had a chance to shoot with it nearly as much as I want. I'm going to be doing a bunch of that shooting over Thanksgiving, putting it all out on Twitter and wherever, you know, trying to edit stuff and put it out. And one of the next videos that I am going to do is image quality, basically just looking at the kind of going into Lightroom and pixel peeping on the and some of the images that I'll be pixel peeping there are going to be from the 27mm lens too. So that video should be out next week sometime. So why will angry photographer be disappointed in me? Peter, I thought he liked the 27. In fact, I watched one of his videos and he was all like, oh, the 27 is like the most underrated lens. It's such a perfect, awesome little lens. He loves pancake lenses, so I don't know why he would be disappointed in me. I know a lot of other people, though, have been like, why are you getting that lens? Like, I had one fellow send me a message. He's like, I'm really interested to hear what, this one fellow messaged me on Instagram, was like, yeah, I'm really interested to hear what you think about the pancakes, because I've heard such bad things about them, and I was like, oh, I'll try it. And like, I've heard a lot of different things about the pancakes, but to me, like, the trade-off seems like it's probably going to be worth it, because I mean, there's a spectrum of good. Like, all the Fuji lenses are good. Fuji makes good lenses. You know, they make some that are better than others, but I don't know. I mean, I've heard a lot of people who really, really love the 18. I haven't heard Angry talk about the 18 a whole bunch, but he was pretty hip to the 27, and that's the one that I have right now. So I'm going to kind of try him out, see what I think, and then kind of between the 27 and the 18, see if and where the 23 fits in there, if that's something, you know, if, you know, one or both of those pancake lenses will effectively replace the 23, then I may let go of that too. But for right now, I'm going to do a couple of videos doing a few more things about the X100F, and then I'm going to be selling that off to somebody who wants the X100F, which it's a great camera. Like, I love the X100F. I can't, I'm really, really blown away with the XE3. It's like everything that I wanted in a Fuji camera. It's you know, it still has some room for improvement. That's the thing. It's like the XE3 has so much meat on the bone that I'm just blown away with it, and I know that once they do a little bit more fine tuning to some of the things, that it'll be even better, which is exciting to know that a camera can have that much potential even right out of the gate without having all the firmware upgrades done to it yet. So yeah, Ken, I like watching his review of lenses. He's generally pretty much he's a good resource on that. He knows a lot about the engineering and stuff like that. But at the same time too, like, you know, different people have different perspectives on things, and like you say, they flip-flop a little bit like that. Yeah, I've always been a big fan of the pancake lenses, and I think that it would be nice if Fuji put a little bit more effort into their pancake game. You know, it's unfortunate that their lowest rated lenses are the pancakes at this point. Yeah, that's a funny thing. I've not ever seen any photography from the Angry Photographer, which, frankly, you know, to me, doesn't bother me. You know, it's not something that I look at as a demerit or something where I would say, oh, like, I can't take this guy's advice, or he's less qualified to, you know, do what he does or to make the videos that he does because he's, you know, not necessarily the most, or I haven't seen any of his work. He never shows it. But he, you know, he knows a lot about engineering and the technical specs and that side of the camera. So yeah, he's an optics geek. That's a good way to put it. You can on Instagram snapshots with manual focus camera. I think he does know a lot about glass, though. Yeah, agreed. Is he Angry Photographer on Instagram as well? I don't know if I looked for him there, but that would be pretty funny to see him on there. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how different people. Oh, okay, very cool. Thank you. I guess I never thought to look for him on there, or maybe I did look for him and it was just so weird seeing him on Instagram that I completely blocked it out of my memory because it like ruined my perception of him. But it's just funny how different people have different things to contribute to photography or, you know, filmmaking or any kind of artistic pursuit, you know. Okay, that might be new since he got the GFX. Official angry photographer. Okay, very cool. I will definitely check his stuff out. Yeah, it's a good time. So let me ask you guys this. I want to turn this around on you for a second. Yeah, I'm a big, well, yeah, before I get to my question, I do have some, I'm a big fan of his as well. I'm maybe not a big fan, but I appreciate what he contributes to various discussions. He's a piece of work, but he is nothing if not authentic. And that is something that, you know, one has to admire. Curious to know what you all are working on, or if you all have any projects, any photo challenges, any things that you are doing that are going to be coming up in the next year. I would be interested to hear about that, because this is the time of year when I tend to start thinking about you know, various assignments or projects, if I don't already have 3 of them, which I do, that I'm kind of working on. But kind of curious what you guys are looking at and kind of planning to plan for, and what, you know, anybody going to be doing anything kind of interesting for the new year, any new projects, anything like that. Would be interested to hear about any of that. Yeah, huge list of video ideas from Kit. Very cool. I have to limit myself on my ideas for videos right now because I have a bunch of stuff in the queue that I have to get edited that I've shot already. It's almost, some of it is almost a year old, 9 months old, so it's about come full term, no pun intended. So it's about time to, you know, kind of get after that and get some of that stuff edited and put out. But yeah, you know, this is always an interesting season. I think like inspiration can strike at this time of year and kind of get us into kind of moving into, you know, new things that we want to do for the new year and all that stuff. So I'm going to be thinking about a lot of that and trying to kind of go in that direction a little bit, you know. King Yuzi says, I'm looking into doing cooking videos on YouTube and more videos for my ASMR channel. Looking to do some fine art photography as well. Very cool. What is ASMR? I do not know what that means, but that sounds awesome. I'm assuming, because you're doing it, and I would assume that you're only doing awesome things. Kit says, like yesterday I was shooting 30 image HDR pano, and it was meant to be a video, but had 15 minutes only, and trying to video and shoot on a single camera didn't work, so I just shot. Yeah, that is one of the things that has proven really difficult, and like initially one of the things that I wanted to do, and I still do on some level, that I wanted to do on this channel was to just kind of go out and shoot and make videos about, like, here I'm going to go to this place and do this hike or this climb, and I'm going to shoot pictures along the way, and then I'm going to make, you know, show the photos and then make a video that kind of goes with it, which all sounds really simple, but it is incredibly complicated to be both doing stills and video at any level of quality by yourself when you are the cameraman for both. It's just a huge amount of time and effort, and that ultimately kind of got me away from doing a lot of those things. because the first person action isn't really so great, and being able to make a narrative thing where you're the talent and the you know, and the production at the same time is its own ball of wax, you know. So that's kind of one of the reasons why I went away from that. But my hat's off to anybody who is you know, doing that or working on that, you know. Tiff says, I have 3 things I'd like to do. 1, do a photo zine, even if just 1 episode of it, or 1 printing of it, I believe is what you mean there. 2, I'm actually trying to publish a book, even if it's an ebook. And 3, I want to film a 7-minute or less short story. Awesome. Very cool. Well, I predict that you will do at least 2 of those 3 in this coming year, because I'm going to bother you until you do it. Because those things are not super difficult to do, at least. And, you know, one of the things that when you have goals like that, a lot of times I think it can be really easy to avoid doing them because you're trying to get to a certain level of quality or standard, rather than just like starting and then kind of improve that first iteration through several more iterations. It's a lot easier to say, well, I have to tweak this and fix that and make it and improve this, and then you kind of go through this process of improving. But, you know, as they say, perfect is the enemy of, or perfection is the enemy of productivity, or whatever. Yeah, I know some people like that. I have never, I shouldn't say never, but I'm not like that. I'm more the, yeah, it's good enough, nobody's ever going to notice that, like, out with it, you know. If it's like, there's a certain, I kind of do that, you know, if it's 85% of the way there and I've been, you know, I don't have real concrete ideas of how to make it better, then it's like I need to finish it up and get it out the door, and then do it again immediately. And it's like doing it again, it's doing it again. That's the thing where, you know, and giving yourself those opportunities to fail, and then it gets easier to practice, and then the more you practice, the better everything gets. At least that's been my experience. King Uzi says, my channel is ASMR Creativity. Haven't uploaded in about 6 months, not since I started my new job, but I want to do more. I am still waiting. This is me talking now. I am still waiting to get a definition of what ASMR is. Everybody else seems to know about it but me, so it must be like something that like is all the kids are doing these days. I'm just an old geezer, you can tell. Like the kids in my biology lab, they always make fun of me for being old. So maybe that's a new thing that I just don't know about. Daniel Walbridge says, I'm trying to jumpstart my photography business. Awesome. I am actually thinking for the new year, one of the many things that is way over my head, but that I might try to do, is kind of re-entering professional photography, not as a full-time career, but in terms of trying to engage somewhat in the professional market in terms of photography, as an adventure wedding photographer. So doing something that's very niche, but that allows me to combine the things that I love to shoot and the places that I love to shoot with people who want to have weddings and maybe try that. Somebody asked me in one of my videos, like, hey, why haven't you ever done that? And I was like, you know, the only reason I can come up with why I haven't tried adventure wedding photography is because I was afraid to kind of try it. And now that I'm not relying on photography for my income, and I'm kind of, you know, able to approach it with a little bit more of a, hey, let's try this and see what happens, without worrying like, oh no, if I start doing something that doesn't work, then I'm going to have destroyed my brand type of concern, but I can be a little bit more flexible. I'm kind of in that position now, so I think I might try that in the new year, but we'll have to see. Queen of Sam McKean says, I'm going to be fixing up my broke-ass garage and film that on Twitch. Okay, cool. I will be getting a better camera, and hopefully I can pull my channel together. Very good. I think that those are all really awesome. I would advocate for the more specific you can make your goals, the more likely it is that you will attain those goals. And if you can partition that and break that down, which I'm guessing that you probably know that already and you've done that. You just probably are not typing that all out on YouTube for my benefit. But I like to hear myself talk, so I figured I would add that in. Peter says, I have no personal projects, parentheses, other than making Steven buy more cameras and enabling his gear acquisition syndrome. Just weddings lined up and whatever comes my way, sports photography and film shorts. Very cool. Yeah, I have some of those, some film shorts that are definitely lined up, that have been lined up for a while too, that I need to get off my plate. King Yuzi says ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response. Really helps people sleep and relax. Well, dude, when you get that channel up and running, I'm very curious to see, hear, and participate in that, because that sounds wild. I never heard of it. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying there, Queen. That's good. Oh, hey. King Uzi, if you can do me a favor, just because I can't, like, check this right now, if you just drop a comment on this after the live stream has concluded in like a few minutes, because I'm going to be winding down here shortly. If you drop a comment from that profile, that would be cool. I would love to see more what you got going on there. That's very cool. Sweet. Well, we are at minute 90, and I have a couple of YouTube uploads that are in the oven, so I gotta go check on those, and I think that is going to conclude things for this evening, unless anybody else has any questions or comments. I've enjoyed this somewhat disorganized and informal chat this evening. I debated not getting on and not doing this and just kind of letting it go, because I didn't really have something. I was kind of distracted or preoccupied thinking about my video that I was working on for the X100F, but interested to still be able to have that chance to chat with you guys and hear a little bit of what you guys are up to. And this has given me some good food for thought, some ideas for the channel for next year, as well as, you know, kind of starting to line out some projects that might be useful to do as well. So that could be cool. So, all right, guys. Anybody have any other questions, comments, anything like that? Otherwise, I will say good night to you all. Thank you very, very much for taking the time. Anybody who is not already subscribed to my channel, please do that. Although I suspect that you all here are already. And I appreciate your time and your support of the work that we're doing, and look forward to chatting with you all on the next episode of the Adventure Photo Show. I will have video out on Tuesday. And yeah, take care, guys. Have a good night.